Hello, I'm Harry Rose and welcome to the Greater Sydney Landcare Network's Soil Health Series. In this series we'll be showing you how to use the Soil Health Card so you can go assess soils on your property. So why might you want to assess the health of your soil? Because healthy soils equals healthy landscapes equals healthy pastures. So this video is about measuring soil texture. Soil texture is just the measure of the amount of sand, silt and clay in the soil. So when you have a very sandy soil, it doesn't hold a lot of moisture and it tends not to be very fertile. When you have more clays in it, it holds more water, holds more nutrients, but they also tend to get more waterlogged easily. So that can be important to know your soil texture, because if you want to change the acidity of your soil, you've got to add more lime to a clay soil than you do to a sand. If you want to add fertilizers to your soil, you can add more fertilizer to a clay soil and it still be held onto than you can to a sand, where you've got to add it in small amounts. Here we have the topsoil from that soil core I did. So what you need to do is grab a large amount of soil, because as we work it, you're going to lose quite a bit. Then what you need to do is pull out any plant material that's in there, because what we're going to do is make a ribbon out of this soil once it's wet. And if there's a lot of plant material in it, the ribbon will tend to break wherever the plant material is. So sometimes this can take quite some time. Also, check for rocks. If there's rocks in there, take those out. So then the only tool you need is a spray bottle. So what you do is just spray some water onto the soil and then work it a bit. You'll see a lot of it's dropping out. Don't worry about that. That's why we've got a lot of soil. And then a couple more sprays, then work it again. If you find out too much is dropping out, just pick up a little bit more. And then once it starts holding together a bit, then you can start working it with both hands, and you'll see more plant material has shown up, so I can pull that out as well. And the idea is you're supposed to get the soil wet all the way through and uniformly. So you don't want any little dry spots in there. So even as I'm working this, I'm finding a few rocks, a bit more plant material. Now the reason I use a spray bottle rather than just pouring water on is you can easily pour on way too much water and just turn it into mud. So then you just keep working it in your hands, feeling whether there's any dry spots through there. Now, here's a few hints as to the texture. If this was sand, this would not be able to fall a ball, it would just fall apart. Think if you got sand from a beach and tried to wet it up, it would just keep collapsing, it would never form a ball. If this was a clay, I would have sticky material all over my hand. So it's a fair bet this is not a pure clay. So it probably only leaves a loam or a clay loam. So once you've wetted up enough, and this is quite wet, what you've got to do is push out a narrow ribbon of uniform thickness. And that ribbon's got to hang over your hand so it'll actually break under gravity. So what I start to do is just push this out. If you find you're starting to run out of soil, you can always just fold it over like that. Oh, now it's broken. So, if it's a loam, it will be less than 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres long. If it's a clay loam, it will be between 2.5 and 5 centimetres long, or that's 1 to 2 inches in the old measure. Or if it's greater than 5 centimetres or 2 inches, then it will be a clay. This is only 4 centimetres long, so this is a clay loam. So the next thing you've got to do here, and this takes a lot of practice, it's not easy, so it's really good to have someone who's experienced next to you doing it with you so you can see how to do it. You should take a small bit of the soil and then rub it between your fingers. Now if it feels super gritty, then this would be a sandy clay loam. But this is not super gritty. If it's really silky, like rubbing 2 pieces of silk between your fingers, then this would be a silty clay loam. But this is neither really gritty nor really silky, so this is just a straight clay loam at the top. Now what we're going to do is look at the texture of the subsoil. I've just already done some of the sorting here, and here was all the rock that was in the soil, and this is the bit of soil that was left behind. So you do exactly the same. You just grab a large handful of the soil, then start wetting it up. Now I should have said, if it's a sand, it doesn't take long to wet up at all. If it's a clay, it'll take a lot of moisture. Now, even as I work this, I can hear lots and lots of sand in here. You can hear it grating together. So I'm going to have a sandy something texture. But let's see what the ribbon test gives us. So again, I try to push out a uniform ribbon, uniform thickness, uniform width, and see where it breaks. Okay, so here we've got a ribbon which is over 5 centimeters long. So we've got a clay. Without even wetting up the soil between my fingers, this is just super gritty. So this is a sandy clay. So what we have was a clay loam, which is quite chocolatey, over a yellow sandy clay. So it depends on how quickly that texture changed. If it was a sudden change, the water could flow rapidly through that topsoil, hit this clay soil, and then head sideways, and we could get a waterlogged layer. Although it's not suggesting there's a lot of waterlogging going on looking at the colour of the subsoil. Or if the texture just changes slowly, the water may be able to go right down through this profile and no waterlogging is occurring. So remember, when you finish your assessment, fill in your soil health card.